When we are uncomfortable or anything unpleasant happens, we look to take refuge in something. Usually, we turn to food, alcohol, sex, drugs, money, power, or relationships. But none of these things give us the lasting protection or satisfaction we are looking for. When you understand you can't find lasting happiness in samsara, then the desire to find true refuge becomes strong.
In Buddhism, we take refuge in the three jewels known as the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. These three jewels form the foundation of Buddhist belief and practice. These jewels represent the essential elements that guide practitioners on their spiritual journey toward enlightenment and liberation from suffering. The Buddha is like the doctor who understands your disease and knows how to treat it. The Dharma, his teachings, is the medicine he prescribes, and the Sangha is a spiritual community that helps you to take the medicine. To take refuge is to finally seek protection from suffering in a way that can really help you. When we think about the ultimate nature of reality and what causes us to suffer, this is the true meaning of refuge. Before listening to these or any teachings, it's essential to prepare one's heart and mind in the appropriate way, to set one's attitude in the highest intention, to be able to benefit all living beings. Now, you are about to listen to teachings on taking refuge in the three jewels, Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. And this motivation itself is taking refuge. It is taking refuge in the path to enlightenment. Now, let's explore the significance of each jewel, teachings from the Buddha that illuminate their meanings, how they are interpreted across various Buddhist traditions, and why you should take refuge in it. The first jewel, Buddha. The Buddha refers not only to Siddhartha Gautama, the historical figure who attained enlightenment, but also to the potential for enlightenment that exists within all beings. The Buddha serves as an exemplar, demonstrating the path to awakening through his own experiences and realizations. One of his key teachings emphasizes self-reliance, as mentioned in Dhammapada, is, "Be a light unto yourself." This teaching encourages practitioners to look within themselves for guidance and to trust in their own capacity for enlightenment. In various Buddhist texts, the Buddha is portrayed as a compassionate teacher who shared insights into the nature of suffering and the path to liberation. For instance, the Pali Canon details his life and teachings, emphasizing the Four Noble Truths as foundational principles. These truths highlight the importance of understanding one's own experiences as a means to achieve liberation. In Mahayana Buddhism, the Buddha is understood through the doctrine of the Trikaya, or three bodies, which includes Dharmakaya, meaning the ultimate reality or truth, Sambhogakaya, meaning the body of bliss, representing the Buddha's enjoyment of enlightenment, and Nirmanakaya, meaning the physical manifestation of the Buddha in the world. This interpretation highlights the multifaceted nature of the Buddha's existence and his ongoing presence in guiding practitioners. The second jewel, Dharma. The Dharma encompasses the teachings of the Buddha, which provide a framework for ethical living and spiritual development. It includes not only the doctrines he taught, but also the practices that lead to enlightenment. The Dharma is often symbolized by the Dharma chakra, representing the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth, as well as the path toward liberation. One notable teaching related to Dharma in Dhammapada is, "All phenomena are impermanent." This insight encourages practitioners to recognize the transient nature of existence, fostering detachment and reducing suffering. Scholars such as Bhikkhu Bodhi emphasize that understanding the Dharma involves both intellectual comprehension and experiential practice. In his writings, he notes that engaging with the Dharma is essential for personal transformation and ethical living. Additionally, various Buddhist traditions interpret Dharma differently. For example, Mahayana Buddhism expands this concept to include not just teachings from Shakyamuni Buddha, but also those from numerous bodhisattvas. It views Dharma as a universal truth that transcends individual teachings, further reinforcing its significance as a guiding principle for all practitioners. The third jewel, Sangha. The Sangha refers to the community of practitioners who follow the Buddhist path. Traditionally, this included ordained monks and nuns. However, it now encompasses all individuals committed to practicing Buddhism. The Sangha provides support, encouragement, and companionship on the spiritual journey. Buddha emphasized community when he stated that, when you have friends who are virtuous and wise, you should associate with them. This teaching highlights the importance of surrounding oneself with like-minded individuals who can inspire and guide one another. In Tibetan Buddhism, Sangha takes on additional meanings through concepts like three roots, which include Guru, which means the teacher who imparts wisdom, Yidam, which means a meditational deity representing one's potential, Dakini, which means a female embodiment of enlightened energy. These figures illustrate how community support can manifest in various forms, enriching practitioners' experiences on their spiritual journeys. You must be thinking, how is it relevant to you? Why should you be following the three jewels or taking refuge in something? We may think that taking refuge is just a Buddhist thing, a Buddhist topic, but actually, we've been doing it all our life. We always try to take some kind of refuge, go for refuge, when we notice that we're suffering. And of course, when we are very young, the first refuge we had was our mother. Whenever something went wrong, we went running to our mother, and she was quite a wonderful refuge as a child, seeming to solve all our problems for us, or most of them. But as we grew older, we found that maybe our mother couldn't solve all our problems, so we discovered or had to find other refuges. These were our friends, the friends we found, and then, as we grow older, we look for other refuges, particularly our wealth. We all believe, most of us, most of the time, that money will be able to protect us from suffering and bring happiness. So, we find a refuge in money. Especially in our society now, this is the main refuge. It used to be religion, some kind of religion, now it's money or power. We take refuge in drugs, socially accepted drugs like alcohol. These are all types of refuge. We go to them thinking, hoping, believing that they will afford some kind of protection and somehow bring an end to the suffering. Also, food. This is a very popular form of refuge. Sex, alcohol, drugs, and so on. Everything we do, actually, is some kind of refuge from suffering. And also, at the same time, we hope not only will it stop the suffering, but also bring happiness. But we discover, with experience, that all of these different things that we've relied on as some kind of refuge are not a complete refuge. They don't completely solve our problems. They don't bring an end to our suffering completely. And some of us come to the Buddha Dharma because we've discovered that the things we've relied on in the past to overcome our suffering and bring some happiness, none of them really works. And even all of them together, all of these ordinary forms of refuge, even all of them combined, don't work. They don't really stop our suffering and especially the causes of our suffering. What we need to take refuge in is something perfect, unbetrayable, pure mind, free of all faults, possessing all qualities. And that is the definition of Buddha mind, enlightened mind. Only that is unbetrayable, something that we can completely rely on and can give every solution. Because one of the good qualities of enlightened mind is that it is omniscient, knowing everything, so therefore it can't make mistakes. So when we recognize that we have suffering and the causes of it, we also recognize that this all arises because of ignorance, the wrong view of self that we have, the wrong view that we have of the way all phenomena exist. So this poison in our mind, this afflicted thought of ignorance, is like the worst possible disease that we could have. It's the worst disease because it gives rise to every other disease. The only reason we experience sickness and death is because of karma. And karma is created because of delusions. And delusions depend on the presence of ignorance. If we really recognize that, we have to find someone who is the perfect doctor, and that perfect doctor is the Buddha. Because that perfect doctor, the Buddha, has freed themselves of every disease. They know every disease and the cure for every disease. They've cured themselves of every disease, and they know how to cure us. And the medicine, the perfect medicine, is the teachings, the Dharma, the Sangha, meaning the ordained followers of the Buddha who have practiced intensively and gained a direct insight into the nature of themselves and phenomena, are like the nurses who help us to take the medicine. They are like the nurses who help us to take the medicine, remind us when to take it, how to take it, in what dosage, and so on. And they inspire us to do so. As an ordinary worldly person, we are always seeking happiness in the external world, out there. And all our suffering and problems, we put the blame on that, on something out there. someone out there. But when we take refuge, or when we do refuge, we become an inner being. We make this conscious recognition that the source of my suffering is not out there, it's within me. When we first take refuge, that's what we recognize. The moment that we start to recognize for ourselves and understand that the real cause of my suffering is not out there, but it's inside. And that the real cause of happiness is not out there, but within me. As soon as we have really understood that at some level, then we have refuge. We become an inner being. We realize that everything, good and bad, is in us, and we have to work from within, cultivating the garden of our mind. When we become an inner being, we become a practitioner of the law of cause and effect. We see that that is the key to everything. So, as in conventional expression, we say that if there is a threat, seek refuge somewhere. Similarly, in the context of spiritual practice, to protect oneself from the threat of unfortunate or unfavorable rebirth, one needs to seek refuge in the three jewels. When we speak about taking refuge in the context of Buddhism, we must understand that actually, there are different levels of refuge and different types of refuge. For example, the highest form of refuge would be that of a Mahayana practitioner, where the refuge that you are seeking from is the threat of being caught in the extremes of samsaric existence on the one hand and isolated, nirvana, solitary nirvana, on the other. So, to be protected from these two extremes of samsaric existence and peace, you seek the attainment of Buddhahood, which is the embodiment of Dharmakaya, where the Buddha is body of reality, and Rupakaya, where the Buddha is body of perfect form. Not only that, but you also seek such an enlightened state for the benefit of all sentient beings. This kind of taking, going for refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, is that of the Mahayana practitioner. And also, the refuge that you are seeking from is much more comprehensive. So then, we can also recognize a second level of going for refuge, where the protection that is being sought, the refuge that is being sought from, is the suffering of conditioning, pervasive conditioning, and also the suffering of being caught in cyclic existence and your fear of the destructive power of all the negative emotions and thoughts. And in order to seek refuge from that, you go for refuge to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, which embody the total transcendence of cyclic existence and the sufferings, particularly the suffering of conditioning. And then there is, again, a third kind of taking refuge, where the spiritual aspirant is seeking refuge only from a sort of immediate threat, which is the threat of being reborn in the lower realms of existence, and having a tremendous sense of fear for that possibility. Then, seeking refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha provides protection from that. So, when we talk about this kind of refuge, the threat that we are seeking refuge from is the possibility of suffering in the lower realms of existence. When we think about the lower realms of existence, we should not think of a place so far away in the distant future. This is not really the case. What divides us from the present moment and such a possibility of the next life in a lower realm of existence is simply the continuity of this breath that we all inhale and exhale. The moment that ceases, the next life is right there in front of you. So, we go for refuge to Dharma. When we go for refuge to Dharma, we go for refuge to the Buddha, who taught the Dharma. We go for refuge to Sangha, who are the helpers. So, the wish to practice Dharma leads to the practice of going for refuge. The first advice from the Buddhas, when we go for refuge, is to observe our karma. Be mindful of our actions so we don't create negative actions that lead to rebirth in the lower realms of existence. You know, our mind is the cause of our suffering or happiness. It arises out of our mind, so it's much more important to protect our mind than to protect our body. It's much more important to protect a positive state of mind than to protect our possessions, our body, and external things. But we have a habit of thinking they are more important than our mind. So, we trash our mind and protect our body. We have to learn how to accept trashing our body to protect our mind, because it's with anger, hatred, and aggression that we destroy our happiness. So, my purpose is not to harm others. You think my purpose is to practice Dharma, to extend kindness and compassion to others. As you generate a state of refuge in your mind, remember, yes, the ultimate purpose of my life is to awaken my mind to benefit others. For this, I rely on the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. We need these three jewels because they help us overcome our problems and put us on a safe and sound direction in life. The purpose of going for refuge to Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha externally is to develop those qualities within ourselves. You can have different meanings of refuge because there is a kind of inner refuge and there is an outer refuge. When we say we go for refuge, we can also say, I take refuge in my own wisdom. But since our wisdom is limited and we need to develop our wisdom, we have to rely on beings with greater wisdom than ourselves. That is why we rely on the Buddha, who teaches perfect wisdom. We go for refuge to Buddha, that's external refuge, to develop our own inner refuge. Then we go for refuge to Dharma, which is the wisdom itself in the mind of Buddha. That perfect wisdom, understanding relative and ultimate truth, understanding the law of cause and effect. And so, we go for refuge in that wisdom to gain perfect wisdom ourselves. That's the Dharma. And then we go for refuge to Sangha, because Sanghas are the helpers on the path. They say that this state of refuge, generating a state of refuge and compassion, completely stops lower rebirth. It is impossible to take a lower rebirth when your state of mind is focused on refuge and compassion. It blocks everything. That's the best state of mind for us ordinary people to die in. To actually be in a state of mind of refuge, bodhicitta, and compassion. The three jewels, Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, are central to Buddhist practice and belief. They offer a comprehensive framework for understanding one's path toward enlightenment. Through taking refuge in these jewels, practitioners commit themselves to a journey marked by wisdom, ethical conduct, and communal support. As scholars continue to explore these concepts across various texts and interpretations, it becomes clear that embracing the three jewels not only provides guidance, but also fosters a deeper connection to oneself and others. On this shared path toward liberation, by integrating these teachings into daily life, individuals can cultivate inner peace and ultimately achieve their true potential as enlightened beings. The interaction among these jewels is characterized by mutual reinforcement. The Buddha's teachings inspire individuals to engage with the Dharma actively, while the Sangha offers a supportive environment for this engagement. In turn, practicing Dharma within a community enhances understanding and deepens connections among practitioners. Integrating the three jewels into daily life involves a commitment to mindfulness, ethical living, community engagement, continuous learning, and reflective practice. By taking refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, individuals can cultivate a deeper understanding of themselves and their relationships with others. Ultimately, taking refuge in the three jewels signifies a formal commitment to personal transformation. These practices not only enhance personal well-being, but also contribute positively to society by fostering compassion, wisdom, and interconnectedness among all beings. Through these efforts, practitioners can navigate life's challenges with greater resilience and purpose while remaining aligned with their spiritual goals. What are your thoughts about the three jewels? Do you think taking refuge in it can solve many of the problems in your life? Share your thoughts in the comments section. If you found it useful, please give it a thumbs up and share with your loved ones you think would benefit from it. Please subscribe to the channel if you are a new viewer. As we step into this new year, remember, the ultimate source of happiness and peace isn't something external, it's already within you. By taking refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, you're choosing a path of wisdom, compassion, and transformation. We will close this discussion with the quotes by former Lama Thubten Yeshe. Our lifelong dissatisfaction compels us to find refuge in Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha.